that align marketing and sales together, but also sales, what they do into customer success to make sure that the deals land and expand. So yeah, I think that's why they don't have those skills. But it's also, as you mentioned, it's around price point. That worked across industry sector, no matter what market we're in, because that was a culmination of live objections plus what it got them and where they want to get to in one piece of creative.
Hey guys, before we begin the podcast, I just have a super simple ask for you. If you'd hit the subscribe button or follow, whatever it is on your platform, it helps me more than you can know. So go ahead, hit the subscribe button, follow, and let's get right in. So, Adam, your bread and butter is B2B marketing and sales. Your tagline reads, bringing basics back to business. In B2B marketing and sales, what does that mean?
Oh, there's a lot to unpack there. Firstly, thank you for having me on, Andrew, all the way with our time zone differences here. People may or may not have guessed with my accent. Now, what does it mean? Basically, outside of the tech SaaS bubble, there are fundamentals that are done across the funnel between marketing to create demand that align marketing and sales together, but also sales, what they do into customer success to make sure that the deals land and expand. What I found through talking on LinkedIn for the past 5 years is that many companies have no idea what these things are, because through the rise of predictable revenue through the book through Aaron Ross, everything went through the SDR-AE route, and no, it's speed to lead. How fast can I get you to this meeting? And that became incentivized, and that became the measure, which also predicted the behaviors. So a lot of the stuff that I speak to is unraveling and unwinding some of those misconceptions at market, which are dictated by the minority market.
Okay. So you're saying, I know your other thing is don't sell the meeting. So is that what you're kind of getting at there? Of there's a pipeline that people are typically doing. They're going A, B, C, D, E. And you're saying, well, hey, that works, but there's a better way to do it. And this is why.
When I came up, right, business development used to do core functions to give marketing what they needed so that we could make the content that would get people further to the funnel. So what that looked like was as simple as this. Business development's core function was to literally catalog the market. So what is cataloging the market? Literally have live conversations with who you'd like to be your prospects, but speak to them like you're an account manager for an account you don't have yet. So Andrew, I know you're probably with someone. Funnily enough, I'm not here to sell you anything, but just so I can get my boss off my back, would it be okay that I ask you some questions around your current provider? And they're like, yeah, you're not going to sell me anything? Sure. So that could look like, hey, would it be okay if you could tell us what you're currently paying? Is there a current margin on that? What does that look like? What do you like about your current provider? What do you wish you could change? If you were going to go to tender, what would that look like? Do you have a formal RFP process? Now, Andrew, would it be okay, because we've had a pretty good conversation here today, that I call you back in 4 weeks just to make sure nothing's changed? Then you would walk that information over to marketing and go, hey, I've just found this information. Could we tell this story? I've spoken to 5 other clients this morning that have exactly this situation. Could we build something to really tell that? I then walk back over and I call Andrew back and I say, hey, Andrew, I've got something to show you what I think that might knock it out of the park for you. No pressure, but after seeing it, you tell me if it makes sense. What you've actually done there is align what sales and marketing used to be, where the misconception of market wasn't marketing just get us leads, man. Sales just burn the phone. You're going back with value of what's going to get them to the decision-making process, and they're further into the funnel. You can't do that in categories where they don't have a defined category. So perhaps a lot of the tech SaaS crowd don't understand what I'm saying, because their product is slightly different from pre-existing categories. So they don't understand, but also with pressure of speed to lead, that if they just circle back and ask them what would help them win, and what do they look like, and you circle back with the answers to the test, essentially, you'd get the deal. But that's only one component. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that kind of sounds like double dipping, like target market research and sales, because you're getting a lead off of it and you're getting the research that you need. It's a 2-for-1 deal. I mean, there's really nothing better.
Yeah, I agree. So that would also help companies that are maybe pre-seed get product market fit, Because if they call those companies and they're saying, oh, actually, Adam, we don't have anyone for that right now, should we? Or we're not doing that right now. And you're like, okay, so you could flip that. If you were well-versed enough, you could then go, okay, well, what would help you win right now? And that changes everything. So what I guess I'm showing in a really compressed moment in time here, speaking with you here, Andrew, is that a lot of these skills have been washed out of the market because of the tech SaaS bubble. But if you look outside of that, these are still the fundamentals across industry sector.
Yeah. I know one thing that I've been working on with my essentially generation sales funnel is I ask people in my call, first thing, what are you struggling with and how can I help you? Because that tells me how the market is. Like, of course, it's phrased as a sales call, and it's kind of like that where you're going to run into the issue of it's a sales call, right? And that has a negative stigma. But you framing it like that takes that away instantly and takes the pressure off. I heard on Darren Lee's podcast as well. One guy was talking and he was like, yeah, routinely when I'm on a call with someone right before, like I give them all the information, I tell them how much it is, whatever. He does something along the lines of, hey, I need to grab a coffee. Runs out of the room, grabs a coffee, maybe grabs a coffee for the other guy because it takes that pressure off. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing that you're doing here, calling back in 4 weeks. I wanted to ask, in addition on your opinion on this, Hermosi, it's like his whole thing is give away free information, whereas yours is to ask for information. What is your opinion on that?
I do give away all of the information for this whole playbook away for free as well, which is a 22-page book, which I do in conjunction with the B2B playbook in Sydney. So that is different from asking the market for product market fit feedback, I feel. I think they're two different functions.
So it seems like they're both top of funnel though, right? So one would be more for a higher ticket client and one would be more for like a B2C low ticket client. So like giving away free information, you can get more people. But talking to one specific person, if you're in like a B2B, very niched down industry, you can pre-select for those people, take the pressure off, and you don't run into issues. But if you're in a huge volume, like you need to sell 20,000 shoes, you run into issues with that.
Of course. Yeah, of course. And that's probably why tech SaaS people that are selling under $5,000 ACV wouldn't have any idea what I'm saying with any of this stuff. However, if they did and they had an efficient machine to be able to do it faster, they'd have sales and marketing alignment, but also they'd be calling back the companies that they're essentially account managers for that they're not yet for, if that makes sense. Because when you speak to an account that you don't yet have as a manager of that account, you're not actually selling, you're just asking them questions. And when you can play from there, it makes it a hell of a lot easier because the barrier to entry to ask for permission is less. So, yeah, I think that's why they don't have those skills. But it's also, as you mentioned, it's around price point.
Yeah. With that, what's your ideal funnel look like from top to bottom? Walk me through that.
For what I'm doing now, or?
Yeah. So like if you're coaching someone, whatever it is, doesn't matter. What is the perfect funnel for you? What does that look like?
Well, interesting. Okay. So there are two ways you can go about it. It really depends if you've got sales and marketing alignment and buy-in. If you don't have that, then it still comes down to the two ways. So the two ways will be, which is what I used to speak to a lot of, which is what I coined permission-based creative. Now, what that will do is enable you to speak to people to offer them something of value to get them further into the funnel with permission. Now, the reason that I discovered that through many head of sales roles is I saw the dysfunction between what marketing was allowed to produce and what they were producing. So what I started doing is pulling apart bid contracts and making them into sales copy. And then I made that into animations. And then I asked my new business team to send it to people. Now, what I found, to answer your question, that's where I'm going with this, is that worked across industry sector, no matter what market we're in. Because that was a culmination of live objections plus what it got them and where they want to get to in one piece of creative. So that's one motion for the top of the funnel. And then the other one is cataloging the market to circle back with what you know the answers are.
I like that. I really like that. Because then you're already taking what you know is working and what's continuing to work and you're just pushing it to the front. And you can just repeatedly do that. That's really smart. I like that.
Yeah, well, it still shocks me to this day that more companies don't realize that. But all I've really done is made like a demand marketing recipe, but I've utilized the new business team as a point of distribution. So that's how I taught myself that form of marketing. I don't begin to understand performance marketing. I don't understand SEO or anything that you might be able to give me coaching on. But what I tried and tried again after 23 years of doing this across industries and across 3 countries, that was the recipe that always won. So if you're in an engine that says you're not allowed to do cataloging the market, annual contract value feedback loops, dive in with something to show them a value that's going to get them further to the decision-making process. Ask them for permission. Is it okay, Andrew, that I show you this? After viewing it, you tell me if it makes sense. That'll get you to a certain amount of opportunities. Whereas if you are in a market where you're allowed to, or an engine where you're allowed to catalog the market first, you're essentially only circling back with what's going to make them win in the first place. So you've got a pretty high strike rate of doing that. So that's where the source is between those 2 options.
I like that because in addition to everything that you said, you also have social proof because you already have a client that's doing it and you can lobby to that. And so many people will buy if they know that you've already done it because they like the pressure's off. You're just like, oh, like I know they can do it. One thing that I've heard recently is the infinite marketing loop. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So it comes on occasionally on my LinkedIn as I'm browsing. And it's this idea of like selling something to someone over and over instead of looking for new clients. Yeah. And it's like the subscription, the Netflix idea, subscriptions. It's that kind of idea. How do you use that at all? Or
interesting that you should say that. So what we used to call that was like vertical integration or selling to multiples. So in 1988, the Australian salary packaging industry was formed. And what they did is they realized that they could partner with employers to caveat benefits to those employers to give to their employees that would get them mass market adoption. So the ones that became the movers and shakers in that industry actually made like a self-closing quote. So the quote was, Andrew, hey, look, would you like this car to be tax-free? Would you like this mortgage payment to be tax-free? Would you like this credit card payment to be tax-free in one place? So they were able to go back further and further again. So all business development needed to do was sell the contract of sale. So if you could get access to those employers, and then there would be a blend of getting new employers while you're doing live quoting sessions to all of their ongoing employees for different products every single time. We did that a lot. That was basically where I learned most of this, was through that. And that's like part of big finance in Australia.
Interesting. So is that internal then as well?
Internal
mostly? Or like, do you sell internally as well? Or do you sell externally a lot as well? Like internal as in like employees of the company. Do you sell to them as well? Or do you sell externally?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
yes,
interesting.
You'd have to do both. So you'd have to sell once the contract with the CFO, and then the individual items inside of the quoting system for the benefits to the we'd call them valued employees. And then you'd get reciprocal access to go back. Hey, Andrew, last year you bought this novated lease. That was a tax deduction. How's it all going? We're going to be on site next Tuesday. Would you like to look at some additional benefits you can add to your suite? So that's how they did that. They were basically pillaring them together. Or if you were really, really smart, you would quote the benefit to an employer that didn't have any benefits, and then you'd get the national contract supply straight up front. Spin it back the other way. So we did a lot of that in the early 2000s, man. And that's kind of where I learned a lot of this. And I was really lucky to have some really good mentors that taught me everything you see in that 22-page carousel with George Coudounaris now came from that learning. So national contract supply up here, people inside the contract here, pivotal benefits in between. But yeah, if you couldn't get the national supply contract, a lot of the time what we would do is find like a key decision maker and sell them the benefit first. So they had to give us a supply contract.
Interesting. Yeah. That's definitely way different than in the US comparatively to how, because dude, our benefits, we don't even have to supply them to sometimes. So if we have something what's called a 1099 and they're not hourly, they're based on essentially per project, we don't have to give them any benefits, nothing at all. But if you have a W-2, it's which is like a salary employee or an hourly, if they're working over 20 hours a week, it's health insurance. You have to offer it in some capacity. And I'm blanking on the other ones. There's a couple other benefits that you're forced to. Yeah. You're forced to, and you just don't have an option. So you can't play around with benefits as much.
Yeah.
Whereas it sounds like,
it
sounds like for you can. Is that true?
That was a whole industry sector that was added on top. So yeah, we could do anything. Within reason, the tax-free benefit was obviously dictated across industry sector codependent on how your industry was registered with the taxation department. Like there's more benefit for charities and religious practitioners as opposed to public benevolent institutions would have more. Schools would be classified as another thing, which is called rebatable entities. So they could pay to have other benefits and then they pay a rebate. But yeah, there was a lot of benefits across the board. Yeah.
Hey, mate, are you at all struggling with your website? Whether it be conversions, being found, or just in general getting people to do anything on your website aside from look at the homepage? Well, I'll tell you what. I have an offer for you. I personally book one-to-one meetings with people so that we can help them get their website from F tier to A tier. If that sounds like something that you'd be interested in at all, go down below, check out the link in the description. There's going to be a Calendly link and a link to my website. Both of those can get you there. So go ahead, book a one-to-one personalized meeting with me, and looking forward to talking. With that, back to the podcast. What are some of the weird benefits that you've seen?
Like remote area housing reimbursement? Yeah. So you could I didn't know this was going to turn financial. Yeah, man, there's probably like 16 benefits that you can offer in those suites. So the people that were doing those quotes had to understand how to sell all of them, which is a very different skill set from what you see globally now, because you had to be able to master everything and how they work together. So yeah, there's some pretty unique stuff in there, which is kind of just like all taxation benefits. Maybe some of that would be handled in the US by your accountants through your benefit estimation periods. But out here, that was a whole thing that started, which kind of taught me how to sell the contract first and then the benefit second, or the benefit first to get the contract as a way of selling.
Okay. Yeah, that's really, I would have never thought that. Interesting.
It's like a little bit sneaky, but it's kind of how the whole industry sector was built.
Well, that's so funny about like housing is funny to me, because I'm sure there's people out there who just figure out a way to essentially write off the entirety of their housing. Like I'm the type of person, so I have a studio apartment, and in the US you can write off a percentage of your living space if it's considered an office. So my mattress this is a studio. It's in the closet, because then this entire room, which is 65%, is a write-off. So I can write off 65% of my housing.
Yeah. So they imagine that, but you could do that per payroll frequency. So if you were paid weekly or bi-weekly, you could get that advantage divided by time divided by your payroll frequency in advance.
Shoot, man, I better move to Australia. Yeah. This sounds good. I'm here for this.
Yeah. It's once people understood it, everybody did it, and it was a pretty easy benefit to sell to the HR or the CFO, because I'm like, well, one, CFO, how are you saving your valued employees money? HR, how are you retaining those key staff? Are you giving them these benefits because these guys are? And no one says no to that. So it was pretty easy, man.
That's amazing. I love that. One of the other things, so you have B2B LinkedIn ads, and if I'm correct, you do that. You handle that like an agency. Is that correct?
I've never run any ads, man.
Okay. Yeah. I wasn't entirely sure.
My co-dependent George could run that from the B2B playbook side. But from my side, everything is organic.
Okay. Talk to me about that. Yeah. How does that work?
Through speaking to people like yourself, or through speaking to clients in person, that might give me a narrative for certain posts. Let's wind this back a little bit. Okay, so years before I started talking on LinkedIn, I thought about it. And I thought, how could I be a point of difference? Because I'm just, at that point in time, I was just a guy living in New Zealand. I was like, who the hell am I to speak to these guys with these, like how is all this going to happen? And what would I have that was different? So I thought, okay, how would I strategically do this? So I started doing book reviews to speak to other people's bodies of work. And at the end of those little segments of videos, I would put my spin on how I would apply that and do it different. I did that for almost a year, 3 posts a day, until people started asking me my own questions, like about what I saw in the market. So I did that to build a following. Once I'd got through that year, I then started I'd get narratives from shows, I'd get narratives from clients, I'd get client interactions from people that didn't buy. I'd explain it different. I'd make videos about that. And some of those might get 40,000 views. Some of them might get 1,000 views. But the ones that really hit, you'll get a whole lot of DMs that said, Adam, I really liked what you said there. I wasn't game enough to comment on the post, but could you come on our show or could you come and do that for us? And that was the moment I realized content was everything. But what one thing that I will say that I think a lot of people miss the market, and you could probably say from your marketing perspective, LinkedIn isn't just set and forget. So it doesn't mean just because you've got a voice and a product and a market fit, you post one thing and 60,000 people see it and inboxing you. What you should be doing is multi-threading that genre of post in other places that pass your social proof. So we would know that we now live in a hyper-connected world. I'd want to be able to Google my name or my company name or who I'm associated with and what comes up. So if that's not extra hits on Medium to lift your SEO rating, if that's not additional posts on TikTok, that in short form, if that's not you having multiple hits in multiple places that pass the sniff test, you've already lost before you got up that morning. And I think that a lot of companies are still missing the mark on that, especially the founders that could be telling their story that don't realize the time that we're in, whereas they should be doing this as like a real estate thing right now, to be speaking as much as possible about what they do, why they got there, who it helps, and threading that in as many places as possible. So when people, I'll tell you this an example the other day, I spoke to a person in the street that stopped me from content that doesn't follow me, and he knew who I was. So that tells me there's some aspect of dark funnel. And for some people that don't understand dark social, that means that my videos are being shared to people that don't follow me in places that I don't know, that's getting me attention, where people stopped me in the street and said, hey man, loved your videos on LinkedIn. I don't follow you. I've been watching your stuff for 2 years. So yeah, I think that's where a lot of the mark is being missed in terms of the organic side. But you could accelerate that with the thought leader adverts. So some that obviously hit the mark, you could then accelerate that even further, but that's not my space. That's more of George Coudounaris' space. So hit him up.
Yeah. Dude, LinkedIn's really cool. I've talked to quite a few people who do a lot of like LinkedIn marketing, and it's, especially for business, it's kind of becoming like the next thing, if you will. Like it's really, really taking off, especially with the new video feature for shorts with air quotes, right? That seems to be taking off really well. And do you do a lot of shorts? I didn't see that many.
I edit everything myself. So if I feel like I'm going to edit into vertical, then I'll do it. But it just depends, man. Like maybe I should be taking advantage of that, but I'm actually looking at repurposing the landscape videos that do really well and maybe posting them in places that don't have market following just yet, like Rumble, because I feel that might be another Gary Vee situation there in terms of if you're the only one giving business advice apart from Gary Vee, Jordan Belfort, and Grant Cardone on that platform, you're probably going to get the eyeballs. So I've started tinkering around with that. George and I are going to probably put another 4 videos on there today just because I have a feeling that's going to explode. But that doesn't really answer the question.
Yeah, no. Have you heard of Opus Clips?
No.
Look it up. It's an AI editor. It does so. Okay. Do you know like the Hormozy style with it? Oh like,
yeah. Sorry,
yeah, it does that. It's completely automatic.
Okay.
I use it like I chop off my podcasts. So what I'll do is I'll put it in the entire unedited before I do anything, and it gives me suggested clips. And it's okay at it. Like you still have to make adjustments. But it's good enough that the amount of time it saves me, there's no point in hiring an editor for it. None.
Yeah.
So I'd look it up because it's like $15 a month and you can do basically all the long form you want.
Okay. Yeah. I guess I just got in the habit teaching myself how to make the marketing content years ago. Then I just started guerrillaing stuff. I was doing a lot of the stuff in Veed. I still do that. I'll do that after the one I was on before that I told you about. Yeah, I do everything by hand. So,
Have you been tinkering at all with AI or no?
not for that purpose. For
Okay.
some of the targeting stuff, yes. But not so much at the moment.
Okay. I've seen some really interesting things with AI. Like, yeah, I find it really good for brainstorming, but I struggle. It doesn't connect very well, right? Because half of marketing is resonating with your customer, kind of bringing out the feels, if you will. AI just, there's no emotion. It's just straight to the facts. And you need to hit that feel spot a little bit in marketing. You can't just hammer in.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's dangerous to rely on a tool to tell you what you should be doing when you should be just speaking to your customers from the horse's mouth.
Exactly. One thing that I am tinkering around with is SEO, because SEO, search engine optimization, is very formulaic, right? It's find the keywords. What do we think we're going to be able to rank for? What's the competition? What's the bid? And then go for those keywords. So I'm experimenting a little bit with it for that, but I haven't pushed it into production. I haven't given it to any clients yet. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see. I am curious. Talk to me about your course. What kind of got you into that? And how do you run it?
Interesting. Okay. So years ago, I fought tooth and nail that I never wanted to be a course person. So what I would do, if for those that remember, people would just book time and I would just tell them the answers to their questions per 30 or 50 or 30 or 60 minutes. So I did that for a long time until I started building out custom content. And then I started, as I said earlier, partnering with venture capital companies that slid me in for like merger and acquisitions and how to fix stuff. And then I would write their full audit and playbook in one place. But then I realized that if that's full time, I could really only do 2 clients full time at the same time. And that's going to be like a 70-hour week. So people don't understand. Yes, I can now look at stuff and go, okay, I can deliver more in 3 months doing that than what I could in 6 or 7 years at some of my longest head of sales roles because I know where to look in terms of output and deliverables, but it's not scalable, right? So then I started talking to George and George was like, well, what if we just chunked it all out? So we basically just come across with joining our forces from demand marketing so from lead gen to demand, and then every action from sales back to marketing, and then every action from sales to customer success. And then we made that into a 6-part series, which is now, I would say, more like an online learning center. And eventually where I want to take that will be like Black Mirror. So choose your destiny, Andrew. Because you've had this question, click on this video. Here's your answer. If that doesn't quite hit it for you, click here, etc. Because I see it more being like that. So it's fully customizable to the person to get that experience, but scalable that I could do 10, 15 people at the same time.
Yeah. Do you do weekly calls at all?
We will, but at the moment, we're just all full steam into the pilot process for that joint process. And then part of that package will be that they'll have certain amount of one-on-one time. And then maybe we'll do tiers. Like if you need more than that, you can obviously pay more money. And if you need less than that, you can pay less, etc.
Hey guys, hate to get into the podcast. I just wanted to say I have a newsletter. And this newsletter gets you free marketing information every single week with 3 marketing tips, 2 things that are going on in the marketing industry, and 1 of my personal case studies. So with that being said, if you at all want to learn about marketing, go ahead. There's going to be a link in my description to subscribe and enjoy the free information. With that, back to the podcast. Interesting. How many tiers are you thinking about? Or do you have them like set up or no?
I have to speak to George.
Okay. Yeah.
We haven't defined that just yet, man.
Okay.
We're still pretty early stage in building it out that way.
How's the course look? Like, do you have it built out? How much of it do you have?
All of the components are done in terms of what we'll be able to produce to the first people on the pilot. But as I said earlier, I think that what I want to do is build a more expansive version of that, where I'll just build answers to questions that come up in the pilot as more of a Black Mirror type choose your destiny, because I think that'll add additional value to maybe what they don't get from others. But what I will say is I don't know anyone else that's built this for every single role within an organization, which is like commercial oversight, which I started talking about like 4 years ago, where I just called this end-to-end service delivery, because in head of sales or CRO roles, that was always my role. But once talking on LinkedIn, I realized that it wasn't part of everyone else's. So that kind of created the market as well. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What? Yeah, awesome. Good man. That. Yeah. Good. Yeah. So we will have our version of that will be like things they have to be able to do at certain competencies at certain levels. And then we'll look at giving them an accreditation for the overarchedness of, well, every department. So it's pretty exciting, I think, from that perspective, because I don't know anyone that's done that before.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. I know you said you didn't have like the tiers scoped out, but what would the price range be, do you think?
That's a good question, right? So as you would know, people's attention spans, or the people that hold the purse strings for the attention spans, vary. So if it was going to be completely action-packed, it would probably take like half a year. So we're really going to have to cram it into a 12 or a 14-week thing. So it will really depend on what the market is willing to pay for that information, but it'll be around probably 12K.
That's definitely a reasonable price. It's
Yeah.
definitely a reasonable price. I mean, for perspective, university in the US right now, I know it's like it's crazy, but I think it's 16 to 18,000 per semester.
Yep.
So that's right in the range. If not, that's maybe a little bit lowballing it, quite honestly. Because I know you're saying Aussie dollars. So you're what? I want to say the US is 2/3. It's 2/3 what the Australian dollar is. So that's probably what?
About
8K for us? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I had to think about that one for a second.
That will enable us to be able to service more of the market, where that'll be easily to be approved for whether a demand marketing manager wants to learn everything across the funnel, whether a head of sales person wants to learn the demand, whether a customer success person wants to learn everything, or whether they all want to be in on it and learn the whole thing across the funnel to bring organizational success. So that's kind of like where we want to play. We know that eventually, especially if we build the Black Mirror version into that, it's probably going to be around the 25K, because we'll have every possible answer answered in there in terms of like, do this if this happens. Have you thought about this? Try this, etc. Which is, I think that's where a lot of things will go. Tech SaaS will probably try to do that with like widgets that can answer those questions and automations of chats and answers. But I think it will be better from a learning perspective to see actual questions answered with live video of someone that's done it before and how to learn it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I'm kind of curious, what are you using to build it? Like what platform?
I'd need to speak to George. Let me speak to him about what we can give away and what we can't. But I believe we'll use it in my Kajabi.
Okay. Interesting. No, I really like this idea. I think it's going to do really well. How are you planning on, like, do you already have people that are willing to sign up right away? Or how are you planning on finding people for the course?
Yeah. So each of those landing pages that we have, we release each Monday, which is part 1, part 2, up to part 6. We also then have a capture page, which is like apply now, which is I think the page that I sent you before the show. And we get a few applications, well, more than a few applications every day. And then we go through and speak with those people and just find out if this is what they're really looking for, what made them click, what are they looking to get out of it, etc. And then we screen those people through what we're looking to provide. We also obviously have identification persona level on each of the other pages where we're getting like there's a lot of hits there. We're not going to be short.
I love that. I love that. How many people do you think you're going to open with? What's your guesstimate?
I think we'll do a pilot with like 10, and then we'll obviously do that in lieu of feedback. But we need to think about the best people and best industry sectors that'll be able to speak to that, so that they can get the best out of it. So we may have to hold over a certain number of people that have already applied that would like to do it right now. Some people have already wanting to send the money now. So we're just like, hold steady on that. Before we get there, we'll just get here. And yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
I think we'll probably do about 10.
Yeah, you're doing really good then, especially setting it up because you're already defining the market.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think your max capacity would be then? What's your guess?
It depends on how built out that we can build it and how much interaction and one-on-one time that they need from George and I. I would say 15, but I don't know if it would actually dilute it if it was more than that, because their experience is going to be the same because all of it's already built. So I don't envision that it would have any trouble around 2025 either. So yeah, when I would have run transnational teams before, I might have had 30 people in my team and they're in different countries. So it won't be anything different really.
Yeah. Is it going to be more international, or do you think it's going to be primarily by you?
The split is probably about 33% at the moment. So the United States or North America, Europe, Australia, Pacific, those are the people that are probably already coming to us. So yeah, we'll have to do it in like cohorts, and we'll have to be very clear on, okay, in this intake we can do this many, and then the next people will go into the waiting list for the next one.
That's also really good because it creates demand. That's a trick that I use a lot. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was thinking about doing month to month on like the first Monday of every month, doing just a call with smaller businesses, because I want a lot of smaller businesses don't want to outsource their marketing, but they want that advice. And so I was like, hey, how would you guys think about like a group call? Kind of like what you're saying. Because I don't want to be the course guy either, but it's not looking good. So like a group call.
Yeah, it's an online university, Andrew.
Yeah. We got to define our terms.
Yeah, pretty much like we've created Wharton over here.
I love it. Yeah. There's actually, in the US, there's some universities that are pretty much going fully online.
Yeah.
Which is really funny too. It's like, why is 95% of your student base in Wisconsin when you're in like Florida?
Okay.
It's like an 18-hour drive. It's so funny to me.
When I started talking about all of this stuff on LinkedIn like 4 or 5 years ago, everyone that I spoke to in terms of clients were in Boston or San Francisco. And I was just some guy talking on a microphone in Auckland.
Yep. It's also so weird with people being out of country as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so difficult to figure out times to like talk or do something, because like, as we were talking about, our days are basically opposite. Like for me, the sun's down, and for you, it's what, like 10 a.m.?
Yeah, almost 11.
Yeah, like it's crazy.
Yeah. But I had to limit the amount of. So I don't know if you've looked at much of my history, but I used to do any show that wanted to talk to me back in the day. I was doing shows at 3 a.m. London time, and then I'd pick up America's next day at my 11 p.m. the same day. I'd do as many shows as I could, but it's not very sustainable. So now I only do my mornings, and then I've still got time to do the work in the afternoon or edit the content to get more of the clients into the funnel or towards some of the landing pages.
That's smart. I haven't run into that. I don't really get asked on shows. I get to kind of pick. What does that... At what point, how do you decide what shows you go on and what shows you don't?
That's a good question. Well, here's a horror story for you. So when I started, and I was super thankful that when I started talking about really technical stuff, maybe almost 5 years ago, I'd say, people used to invite me on their show, man, and they didn't even have a show. And the reason that I found that out is because there was no show and they were just recording me to get free consulting advice. So now I make sure that I check. Yeah. And I never wanted anyone to feel that way with being on my show. So I started making it like a sales pack. So after the show, Andrew, you'll get a copy of the full unedited video. You get a copy of the edited video. You get a copy of the blur. Have I missed anything? Which photo would you like to use for the promotional card? Do you approve these shorts? I tried to make that experience to that level because I didn't want anyone to feel like I felt when I knew that I got jacked. The first couple of times I was like, hang on, man, they don't even have a show.
I hate that. That's cursed. That's so bad. I try to do my best. Every time I post a reel, I'll try to tag them. I'll send it to them first. I'll offer them if they want some reels off of it, I'll send it to them. And I make sure the cover's fine. That's just a good quality of life thing for both people.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there are people that will still take advantage in this world, hopefully for not too much longer. But it does happen.
I'll tell you what, I don't have anything else. Is there anything you would like to say?
No, but if you are a new CRO or you want to understand more connective actions across the funnel, it might be something that you can look at. We can send you a copy of the carousel. That's completely free. I understand other companies out there are charging for some of the information that we've got in there, but for us, that's really just the whetting the appetite for what will be in the full production of teaching people what they should be able to do fundamentally across the funnel.
Awesome. And I'll link everything down below. I'll put your website. I'll put your LinkedIn. I'll put your YouTube. I'll basically every social I can find. So people can find you there.